niggas want the recipe, I said it's all grind. Had to go through in the rain to watch the day shine. This testimony taking faith, my glory go to God. Said I'ma keep this pace, I ain't racing this marathon. Package up in my carry-on, smooth, super shy vibe. Sit back and play it cool while we vibe out. Sit and taste this food, have a drinking good time. Well, we all living fast, but we gon' die fly. We gon' die fly. Do say my cup on this one. Chef Malachi.
Here, but Louisiana's lost something like 2,000 square miles of land since the 1930s, right? And it's because we built those levees. We cut 10,000 miles of pipeline canals, which allowed salt water to get into these sensitive wetlands, eroding them away. Just the canal digging alone equated to about 11% of the total land loss. Experts say that the induced subsidence from oil and gas activity, as well as the tidal action, the increase of the tidal, been just massive losses. So much so where 2/3 of the population is left here because it's become so risky to live. But still, there's 3 times as many people working here as living. And so, of course, the state has a robust master plan to deal with this, right? It consists of 3 main parts. There's structural protections like these levees and pumping stations and floodgates. There's restoration projects, so like barrier islands, marsh creation. The most controversial are sediment diversions. So for instance, in this harbor, the generational knowledge of fishing boats themselves and so the technology, etc., will become obsolete probably in a couple summers once these are brought online. Geologically, it's the simplest way to make land, though, right? You over time. See how there's like some walk over the water bottom there.
Every time I come down, I notice new little stands down here. So do you think that I mean, just based on this kind of growth around, do you think that this is going to be like a substantial part of our ecosystem down here?
Encourage this, right? I mean, this is.
I can say for the Grand Isle marshes, the density of mangroves since Katrina has exploded, and I may be able to get some comparative photographs for you to use in.
Or is it just by seed?
It's just the seed, but the seed is actually sprouted on
And
the
you
plant.
can see how prolific it is. Look at all these seeds.
Oh yeah, like some of those succulents do.
I mean, it's just amazing.
That's why they call them propagules.
So these are pneumatophores, kind of like a cypress tree. You know, obviously it's a stability mechanism, but there's also some sensitivity in there, and a lot of these mangroves will oftentimes drop for the highest tides in, say, like October, later in the growing season. Give that offspring the best chance. It's not that it's any better at preventing marsh from washing away like edgeline erosion, but these can keep up with sinking soils and sea level rise much better than the marshes that they're out competing.
And then this becomes a breeding ground.
Tree.
Oh yeah,
Oh my God, there is.
It's much easier to be used by like
a bunch of crabs up in this.
nesting birds and such, and
Whole different ecosystem.
And
But,
they use-
It attracts biodiversity
And
too.
they use as rookeries too. You know, Queen Bess Island is used by brown pelicans, and that's one of their favorite.
Oh, really?
nation thereof, right?
Yeah, it looks like some bricks on it.
Yeah, and so I mean, anything hard down there is gonna, like an oyster is gonna set on it. Now the ideal temperatures are like it's 78 degrees Fahrenheit is the water temperature when you've got spat that starts sticking on that stuff. So he's trying to get that out there for like the second spat set of the year. That's a nice boat. That was over West
Basically, the first solid thing that they hit, they're like, here's home. Here's where I'm going to be.
They actually taste the substrate with their foot, and then some kind of way they evaluate it. And that's why if you hear oystermen, when they're throwing out a rock like that, they want a clean rock. Because there's something about a clean rock as opposed to a rock that is
Jagged or
well, not covered with crud. You know, when that little spattering oyster tastes that substrate, they don't like it. And so they keep moving around. At that point, you know, they're really not mobile anymore. So they have to just kind of
see what
they're not going forward.
Well, in nature, there wouldn't be rocks here whatsoever, so they would have only been setting on oysters for how long? For a long time, right? I mean,
Because you go out to the barrier islands where those oysters have not been exploited, and you've got oysters out there. I swear they're a foot long.
really?
They're huge.
What do
I
they
mean,
set
not
on?
living,
Sure.
Right.
but the shells, the dead shells. I mean, huge things. I mean, I couldn't choke one of those things down.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, right? That could be a new
you need a knife. I mean, literally.
What's the process of oysters?
What you mean for the growing? On reef oysters, well, they spawn out. So you have they have a shifting sexuality. So they have what's called protandrous hermaphrodism, and so they can change back and forth from male to female and female to male. And so, but at any one time, it's only one or the other.
Okay.
So they will spawn at various times. Like Richie was saying, you know, we're coming into the second spawn, and then they in the water, and so they just broadcast their gametes into the water and hope that out of those billion gametes, they meet up and they fuse and they fertilize, and then you start the developmental process first as a larva that is free to disperse, and then as a spat, which actually once it settles on something, that's it. It is there, and that's what's so dangerous about the oyster industry is that if you have a hurricane come through and you have all the sediment is stirred up and you think it's turbid right now, well, during a hurricane it's like mud soup.
Yeah.
And then once that settles, if it settles on top of the oyster, they can't do anything. They're stuck right there. And so if they get sediment on top of them, they smother. As opposed to clams, which can migrate vertically. Vertically.
Yeah.
And even in some cases horizontally. But that's why you have clams that are, 30 plus years old, because they've endured through these hurricane events, because all they have to do is just move up a little bit and stick their siphons up and start sucking water again. Whereas the oysters are buried underneath, who knows. The scouring from hurricane events is very pronounced, but wherever you have a scour, wherever the water has cut, it moved that soil somewhere. And so that's going to deposit on, whether it's a wild reef or a lease or something.
It's never the salt water that is being.
One of the first trips I came out with Richie was mentioning Bayou Cook, and so I had been doing research on a maritime history of the Gulf Coast, and I had was working on a big chapter of the story called Big Oyster. And what I found in my research was going back to the archives of the Thomas Picayune and all that, because I kept seeing Bayou Cook oysters, Bayou Cook oysters, Bayou Cook oysters, and this was from the 1840s up until like 1920. And I'm like, where is Bayou Cook? I've never even heard of Bayou Cook, and it was so prominent that if you opened up, New Orleans was fueled. The protein that fueled the city of New Orleans was oysters, and so literally it was nothing but raw bars and restaurants. And if you were to open up a restaurant, and most of them are still in the French Quarter and the Marigny and the Bywater, were to open up a restaurant, you had to advertise Bayou Cook oysters. because it was considered the premier oyster. All the oysters from the east side of the river were going up to the canneries on the Mississippi coast, and were considered inferior. You've just because of the difference one side of the river versus the other. I don't actually think that it was particularly true, but even Commander's Palace, when they first opened in whatever it was, 1890 or so, literally their first ad in the New Orleans Times-Picayune, the biggest words you could see were, "We have Bayou Cook oysters." And so here we were sitting out here with Richie, and he suddenly mentions, you know, and this is where Bayou Cook was. And I finally realized the reason why you stopped seeing Bayou Cook oysters listed by the restaurants is because Bayou Cook no longer exists. And it literally stopped in like 1920. Whereas if you go back and search Bayou Cook between any time before 1920, it is just everywhere in the Times-Picayune. And then boom, it stops because it's gone.
Pushed in that it's the sediment that kills them, not the salt.
Well, if you have, which is a touchy subject, if you have exceedingly fresh water, or because oysters will live in, like I said before, in pure salt water. The problem is here is that we have the oyster drills are more prominent in the more saline water. But if you take the same genus and species, Crassostrea virginica, and bring it to Maine and grow it off the coast of Maine in full strength, it's fine. Maybe not the same individual,
Right.
but the ones that they have up there. The other Dana that I know, Dana Morris, he's with Sea Grant also. He's with Maine Sea Grant, and he's the one who is in charge of the oyster gardening program that they have, where all those little millennials that have all those little cottages on the coast of Maine, they all have a little oyster garden for their own consumption. You know, and so Dana Morris.
I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad at that at all.
Yeah. I was going to be in Maine right now.
So how do they harvest them?
Well, that boat that you saw with all the rocks on it, they have a thing that's called a dredge, and it's a big basket. It looks like a shopping cart with teeth. You know,
That's a good way to describe it.
and it's about the same size as a shopping cart. It's got a netted bag on the back, and so they just drag it. And these teeth are regulated by the length of the teeth are regulated by law. It's still 4 inches. Is it still 4 inches?
I want to say something like that.
It's still 4 inches. I'm going to say 4 inches. As opposed to my experimental dredge that I have 10-inch teeth on. But that's experimental, so I have a permit to use a 10-inch tooth. Rather, that's for clams. And so they drag this for however long they deem appropriate, and then they haul it back up with a winch, dump it on a table, and start culling all the stuff off of it, dead shells, whatever, mud.
Yeah.
And good oysters go this way, trash goes back in the water, throw the dredge back in.
Keep
Do
on
that
going.
how many times a day?
Sometimes until they get 120 sacks.
Right,
So it's like in each of these sections, that's what they do?
right.
Gotcha.
Now, they know, it doesn't look like anything to you, but they know if this were your lease, you know that, well, if we go about midway, there's a nice little pocket out there, and there's nothing over here, and there's something here, and that's all.
Yeah, just that experience.
And so they come out periodically, and they check their beds with these dredges to see, because that's their livelihood,
Right.
and they need to be able to go to their banker and say, well, I think we got a good crop, or I'm in a bad space.
Right. Gotcha.
And a lot of these people are in not such good spaces, or let's say they've been in better spaces.
Well, you were talking about the life.
And actually what's been and interesting. You know, we knew the chefs were going to dig it, but what we didn't realize was all the oystermen, how excited they were going to be to have the chefs on board, because there was no communication going on. And just as many questions as the chefs had, the oystermen had for the chefs.
Really?
It's been amazing.
That's
We
nice.
literally did not anticipate that piece of it. And so what they do, they just drop these big cages. They just, like Rusty was saying, they just run in a circle, they pull them up, it's loud, it's heavy work. Basically, they all come up like clumps, that they pull up all the cement with it. You know, so this all comes up with it as well, and so they're sitting there with little hatchets, and they're chipping the oysters off all this culture. And so, I mean, it is just a lot.
And this is a long day process. Just
And it's just constant. It's hard work.
I can believe it. I can only imagine.
But yeah, I mean, it was funny. The first boat we pulled up to, when we had Dana and Abe. So the first boat we pulled up to is this oysterman, Mike Bianchini, who's just, they're all great guys, right? They're all these characters, you know. And we pull up to him, and Richie's like, you know, hey man, you've got all these chefs from New Orleans, do you mind? And he's like, you know, basically they're sitting there like, wait, you got a bunch of chefs that want to climb on my boat and listen to my bullshit stories? Come on.
And it's a cooler?
That is a cooler.
Okay.
So,
Straight ice, just straight icing, packed in icing?
no, it's actually, they have a little freezer set up on them. They're required, Richie will give you the exact times, but I think it's within 4 hours they have to have the oyster, the internal meat temperature down to like 50 degrees or something like that from coming out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So the majority of them have those things on, and obviously when it's colder out, they don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I mean, it's
That's so fascinating.
Amaranth was what the Spanish destroyed in Central South or Central America
Let me
first.
see it has.
This?
Yeah. What was? Well, it's
Oh, that's
amaranth.
different than this?
No, it's the same thing. But the common name is pigweed.
Oh, got you.
The
April's
red-
like, I don't want any pigweed.
red.
Right, that sounds delicious.
It's like cow and beef.
The red
wants
amaranth
cow?
that you planted is a different species.
Yeah, it's a lot more hard, like the seeds are larger and stuff. So.
I do feel that I've seen some that has maybe a
Chef,
If you ever want to see them, just look outside of Carmel because they're growing everywhere.
what's the taste on it?
It's got like the leaves are almost like a little bit like a spinach, and a little bit more bitter than a spinach is great in soups and
Yeah, it's
stuff.
good.
And lots of protein.
Yeah, what about
especially the seeds? Yeah.
What about the seeds?
Seeds, I haven't done a whole lot with because you usually get them dried. But that they're just kind of nutty with a little bitterness to it. I made crackers, and the crackers were, they're good.
Pretty sure I got hammered from international market.
So very few people fishing over here right now.
It's not many. There's a gentleman that runs crab traps around the corner from here. We could pull one of those. It's going to look better unless it's just dumped it.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, yeah,
Let's see the difference.
Yeah, we need to get some crab traps.
There's enough to get in the pot. We haven't checked this in a while.
Yeah, there's no bait in it. It's still got a crab in it.
He's gonna say it on there.
He ate all his friends.
Sometimes the tag is up here. It might be hard to see underneath all the slime. So usually a little stainless ring. No, it's all good. You see how there's so many hiding places in all this submerged aquatic vegetation?
Start building land off these traps.
Yeah,
Right.
for real. Don't tell me. Not these, but some others. Crushed ones.
Got a few more.
Oh yeah.
Is that, well, no.
Hey, he's hanging on by dear life.
So sometimes it's possible for them not to mess with the traps for a little while, but what were we talking about? 3 or 4 crabs in there?
4, 5,
Still no bait in there.
6.
Water bottle in there. The perspective of a chef, right? And the chef is like, this was one of the best fish I've ever ate, and it came from this place in the south of Spain called Veta La Palma. Veta La Palma, which means veins of the palm, and it was like a defunct cattle ranch in a delta. They tried to drain the delta out, and it was just a failure. And so they turned
It's south of Sevilla.
Yeah.
You know who was working with that was
That was Dan.
Fertrell.
Was it?
Randy Fertrell.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, Randy
Okay.
was working with that because he did a lot of work at the Veta La Palma.
Okay.
Just coincidentally, that's where I did my thesis.
really
At Veta La Palma.
Really?
In Spain. Yeah.
way back then. Tell us more.
1981, 82.
Well, go for it, Randy. Tell us. Don't let me try to explain it.
No. I mean, it was just I was working on crawfish at the time.
Were they trying to grow those there?
They did and are.
Got it.
You know, Spain produces in excess of 4,000 metric tons of crawfish
Wow.
per annum.
And they're pretty good, actually.
They good. They're just as good as Chinese.
Do they pretty much hold on
Better
to
than
them?
Chinese, I think.
Do they pretty much hold on to them for there, or do they export?
They export some. Without saying what event it was, but I was at a very big event in New Orleans, and all of the crawfish Monica was made with Spanish crawfish meat.
Really?
I wonder what event that is.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
Yeah,
Sometimes you hear music there.
I think the words crawfish Monica are copyrighted. So.
Yes. Wow.
Ones that are starting to establish here, right? So that's natural recruitment. Some others might be, like somebody tried to build a duck line, that kind of thing.
How deep is it here?
It's a little bit less than 5. Oh yeah. And so these are low to the horizon. There's some mottled ducks flying over there. You can see them. Now I used to only see those. They're really low to the horizon. They know what to do. But there they are, just over the top of the grass in the background over there. But I used to only see pairs, right? And now there's flocks of 70 or 80 birds.
Wow.
And those are here year round, right? So it's a distinctive Louisiana species that's here all the time.
So the,
Hey, this is- So are there any estimates about how much, given this new land growth, how much that will help cut down storm surge? Have you heard anything?
I don't know. I think there's formulas for that,
Yeah.
right? But I estimate, by doing polygons on
Yeah.
Google Maps, that there's been between 1,500 and 2,000 acres have been created or enhanced because of this work. And the thing is, this was like a $2.3 million project in 2006. If this sediment would have been mined from the bottom of the river using a dredge, this would easily be over $100 million.
Really?
Yes. And the thing is, like, unlike the dredging work, that's like an instant parking lot, right? You get a sand deal out here, you got some willow trees growing, but not much of anything else. It becomes habitat over to like waterfowl habitat. Now, you know, it's trying to get a little, you know, like there's some stands of willow and such in it, but it transformed in almost like the most perfect way, in like a very natural way. So it was like it really was just an enhancement on the area. Only 5 or 10% sticks, right? It might not be very much.
Is the Sichi disc testing for sediment, is that the only way that they test for sediment? How, like, what are they using to measure sediment besides that?
Use just, you know, suspended solids.
Yeah.
And that's the test.
The Sichi disc thing? Oh no, okay.
Secchi disc is just it's a rough gauge for turbidity.
Got you.
And you could make implications from Secchi disc to suspended solids. But the real test is when you take the water and you do specific tests for suspended solids.
Are they pulling water from like lower in the water column?
All your freshwater fishes will probably be in here.
Yeah, so I mean, there's going to be catfish, there's going to be pogies and such. I think
Bass
redfish.
and all your centrochids, all your sunfishes.
Okay.
Redfish are going to come in here seasonally.
What's that tower over there?
Oh, that's Burris right there.
That's Bureau?
Yeah. I'll catch this one, Rusty. Don't want to put you to work.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll get it.
Well, if you want to, yeah, go ahead and see what's what. Thank you. April, what's up?
I was gonna ask, I forgot. Can clam exist in straight freshwater? Is it only brackish?
Freshwater clam.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be Rangia.
They're not
especially
brackish, they're fresh, right?
It seems.
Well,
on the fresher side.
they prefer brackish, but you're gonna find them in pure fresh also. You find them all the way up in the Lake Maurepas.
A little gator in there.
Yep.
Little eyes.
Nothing in there.
Nothing here.
No bait either, though, huh?
Nope.
Or
It
is
looks
it
like they haven't been running them in a little while.
Wonder why.
These are old traps.
And I'm wondering if you've heard any movement on. So all of this is new. This is new to Louisiana. It's probably unique in the world what's happening over here. I mean, just in terms of ecosystem and the way it's happening and the rapidity at which it's happening. So, are there any efforts to make this a reserve?
I do not think so. No, 80% of coastal. The way people think about things here, it's all based on the economics of right here and now. People are thinking by the quarter at best, and those are some of the major reasons why we've completely degraded the coastal area. We're in trouble, you know, and unless we do preserve some of these areas, we're going to continue to find ourselves in trouble, right?
I wonder about, something that's a managed wildlife preserve, public access for recreational and even for commercial harvest, but within lines as a way to, again, create incentive for, the Corps and other government entities to keep this happening.
Well, the best they'll get the National Estuary Research Reserve Program in the Pontchartrain Basin. And we were in competition with Barataria and the Atchafalaya. Well, the Atchafalaya won out, so they are the chosen area. So, but that was a step in that direction. Not that it was a restrictive program.
Yeah.
But it was a step to draw attention to areas like this.
Well, even to be able to call it something, even if it had a name that publicly
Just call it BS11.
It's the most uninspiring name ever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a number.
You know what I mean? It's like, or defined.
y'all have your own boats, right?
We do. So these two are ours, and then the next dock over is not ours, but the next one over. So we've got a fleet, 5 total oyster boats. Between the big boats, bedding barges, our small, barges that can get in the more shallow waters to catch the oysters. So yeah, my husband was born and raised in this business. His dad came here from Croatia when he was 19, and his father was here for a long time in the oyster business as well. So it's a family thing. We hope to breed that into our children.
Yeah, was it your son that saw casting the net off the boat the other day?
Yes, he's in the office today with the rain, but funny thing, he's got a seafood allergy, and we run a seafood business. So for 2 years now, he's, we carry his EpiPen everywhere we go, and we just went back to the doctor for a checkup, and it looks as if he's growing out of it.
That's
I was
awesome.
probably just being in proximity of all the seafood.
I'm just glad that he's starting to grow out of it, because I mean,
It's terrifying.
and that's all the kid wants to do is fish, So it's tough when
So it's been fish and still.
it was everything. Yes, oysters, crab. I mean, he tested positive to every seafood she did.
Wow.
So she's like, he shouldn't go to work with you. And I'm hoping and mullet fish and the list goes on and on. So it's just in our blood.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right.
So you don't want to see the room?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So this is our oyster shucking room. So with oysters, you've got to have time and space to separate everything. So this is where we shuck.
I love
So we shuck them and it has this center room where we actually seal everything, and then out to the freezer to go. And then our last room is where we work on everything else. That's oysters, shrimp, and crab. I'm sorry. Shrimp, crab, fish. This is my husband.
What's going on?
Very particular with oysters. You have to have them their own special place. So that's it. This is where we vacuum seal everything. All those will be going in the freezer. And then our final room's where all the rest of the stuff happens. So it's not huge, but it works for us. Right now we're just kind of family run, and his sisters work with us, and just close knit.
Perfect.
Right.
It
It really is.
Nowadays, sometimes it's hard to find reliable help from the outside world.
Right.
So behind Jeff is our ice machine, and fix this thing. I can show you how much take it in the freezer. So this is where our y'all can peek in if you want. It's 4 degrees. You can see we keep all the and then we got some as well. So this is like our 1-pound packaging that we make this into like grocery stores. We do ship online nationwide, and then our bulk stuff is in the outdoor freezer.
No crying in there, huh?
So
I said no crying in that walk-in.
no.
And don't go in with wet shoes. Please
So in terms of, do you all work directly with any restaurants?
We have not. We're expanding into some more grocery stores. We're, constantly trying to build our business. We just opened here a little over a year ago. So,
Okay.
I mean, it takes time to get established and really, build a reputation for yourself.
Well, I'd love to find out more, and I don't know if you do like a one sheet that will have what's available.
Yes, sir.
We work with a couple of fishers directly down here, so sometimes I'm bringing a van down to pick things up, so it's easy enough
Right.
to buy, plus coming down to this chefs on boats.
But we're excited to provide that to people that don't get that every day.
That's right.
You got oysters today?
Yes, sir.
Buy a box.
Absolutely. So our charcoal kit is 3 dozen with the sauce for $65.
Okay.
Good deal. I'll put you a box. You want the box, or you just
Yeah,
want?
give me the whole 9
would if you shucked them fresh.
I'll give it a shot. It's not the right time to get oysters, but so
I know they get better as the cooler weather comes.
I'll look the other way.
We're very much looking forward to cooler weather. These are, yes.
So what's going on? So I just got done with Chef Brigade's culinary chefs on boats down here in Bernays, Louisiana. We just got done going over seeing about oysters and fish and the Native American lands. Then we went over here to this other side and talked about the restoration relief. Like, it's such an amazing thing, opportunity to get to do this. You know, this is some things I always talk about where I really want to get a chance to like see where the food comes from, what food is actually, how it's produced, how it's grown, like, and just learning more about, you know, the state of Louisiana and what it is and how it's going and where they see the future. You know, with Louisiana down here in the Delta, and, you know, most notoriety is New Orleans, but, you know, this land down here in the Delta is slowly decreasing. And that's what these restoration efforts are for, to try and build up marshlands, to try and build up these new channels. Because the oil and gas industry, the global warming has really affected these lands down here. And what a lot of people don't realize is that these marshlands down here, these barriers, these reefs, which were naturally here because, you know what I'm saying, God did his thing whenever he built this, are natural defenders when they come against hurricanes, bad weather, things like that, right? So just think about these marshlands, these barriers down here are the offensive line for the rest of the state of Louisiana. So whenever these hurricanes do come, they're going over these marshlands will help dissipate the storm before it actually reaches inland, right? You know, you don't think of things like that. That's like, oh my God, you know, these storms are coming, but, you know, God already made a way because these natural defenders are already there. But because of global warming, because of the fracking, because of all the oil refineries that are in the Gulf, they're slowly dissipating and they're going away, which also kills off wildlife. So redfish, sheephead, speckled trout, oysters, crawfish, shrimp, like all this down here is dissipating. And if you see the area that I'm at right now, I'll do a pan in just a second, is at this marina, is these people, this is their livelihoods. This Gulf, the food that comes from down here, oyster, shrimp, crawfish, all the fish, this is their livelihood, and it's disappearing, you know. We got a chance to see all the shrimp boats. We just got done talking to a family that does oysters and things like that, and they're having to pivot. You know, it's not just coming in and doing half sacks or sacks of oysters. You know, they're actually vacuum sealing and sending with salt so people can do charbroiled oysters, and they ship all over the place, you know. And it's things like that these small businesses, these family-owned businesses are really having to pivot and come up with new ways because of just the mass production and just the dissipation of this area that's down here. So it's sad, yet it's rejuvenating to see what the money and the grants that people are giving this area to try and restore different efforts. But then again, you'll learn about, as you'll see in the video, efforts aren't being done properly. You know, when it comes to government money, it's government money. You know, you always got to take your good and the bad with that. But hope you all enjoyed this episode. These are more type of things I would love and like to do. You know, besides just the vlogging of what you see of the personal chef side, but actually seeing, because, you know, I am a chef and actually love food and the origin of food and things like that. And that's what I really want to do with our community, especially in the Black community, you know, is show people more about where food is and where it comes from and things like that. So I really hope you all enjoy the episode, all right? See y'all next time. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Love to hear from you, all right? Peace out.
Chef. Malachi, Malachi, it's Malachi.